Okay, hello everyone, this is Daniel Crawford here, and this is Bell to Bell, where we review the week of action from, what is it now, from March 1st, which is Monday, I looked at the wrong part of my calendar, sorry, through to last night's Revolution pay-per-view. We'll get into all of that momentarily. So I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible because there's a lot of things I have to do today, and I want to get this up before Raw. So top 5 matches for the week. So this, obviously, as you know, this is in no particular order. Top 5 matches. We have the cinematic match, the street fight from Revolution. Darby Allin and Sting taking on and defeating Starks and Cage. So this was, I thought that was a really good match. I really enjoyed, like, I've seen a lot of people commentating about, like, the commentary. I didn't really mind the commentary so much. It didn't take away from it too much for me. Like, I'm not a smart mark in that respect. Like, I didn't mind that part. Like, it's fine. Like, I understand. Like, some people were complaining because they were doing commentary as if this was happening now. But there were a lot of parts during the cinematic match where there was, like, nothing being said. There was, like, a lot of silence. I mean, there was action or things in between action, but there were a lot of parts where there was gaps in audio where the commentary helped to, you know, keep you at least invested to a degree. I know some people didn't like it, but I didn't mind it. I thought it was still a great match. I gave it a 10. So I'm really happy to see how that turned out. Really loved Darby Allin's coffin drop that went through that platform or whatever, took him and Cage out of the picture altogether, and then Ricky Starks and Sting into the match in the ring. So that was great. Kenny Omega and Moxley, their exploding barbed wire death match for the AEW World Title. A great match, regardless of the ending. We'll get into that a little bit later. The match itself was, it wasn't, okay, granted, it was gruesome at times, but it wasn't overly gruesome. Like, not to the point where I couldn't watch it. I was able to watch the whole thing. That's what I was afraid of, because I'm squeamish with blood, so it's amazing how I survived watching the Attitude Era. But this match, I thought was good. It was, definitely kept you on the edge of your seat. Definitely kept you at a point where you were like, but I was able to watch the whole thing. So it was a really good match, and I knew that Omega was going to win because word has it Moxley's going to take some time off if he ever returns to the ring, because he does have a baby on the way. But either way, great match, even if the ending was kind of overbooked. Uso versus Bryan, Jey Uso versus Daniel Bryan in a steel cage on SmackDown. I really enjoyed this match. All this story that's being told between Daniel Bryan and and you have the family, the bloodline they call them, with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. This story I'm really enjoying. So this match where Daniel Bryan won the right to face off against Roman Reigns at Fastlane for the Universal title, I thought it was really good. And anyone who doubts that Daniel Bryan is a main event player just needs to watch his stuff there, because he's just awesome. Also, we have from NXT, Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler defending their women's tag team titles against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Another excellent match. It was fitting that Nia and Shayna won. It was really curious, though, when they did this little twist at the end where Adam Pearce sent in his own referee to sort of screw over Kai and Gonzalez. So it looks like they're kind of gradually bringing Kai and Gonzalez into a babyface turn. But I thought it was a good match, really good match, even with that really quirky where they go from there. But apparently it's going to be an open-ended question going forward, some controversy involving NXT and Raw. So, I don't know, it was good stuff. Miz versus Lashley on Raw. Lumberjack match. Granted, the match itself was short and predictably dominant on the side of Lashley. What makes me put this in the top 5, though, are 2 things. I actually did 3, sorry. 2 things. Number 1, the story told throughout the night. Actually, you can go over the past couple weeks, going all the way back to Elimination Chamber, where Lashley helped Miz win the title. Then Miz on Raw last week, the week before last week, Miz sort of postponing giving Lashley the title shot that he wanted. And then, of course, the title shot, they kept postponing it throughout the night. Miz is trying to find every excuse in the book to avoid defending it. They force a lumberjack match, which was pretty good And then Lashley dominates and becomes world champion, making history as only the third man who is an African American, only the third to become world champion in WWE, to become WWE champion. I mean, he's the fifth in WWE overall to become world champion, when you include Booker T and Mark Henry with the world heavyweight title. But the fact that Bobby Lashley won this championship, which you know for a long time that Vince McMahon wanted to put the title on him, this was deserved, and I am very happy for Lashley and looking forward to hopefully seeing a Brock Lesnar versus Lashley match. We'll see if we ever get that, but I would scream for joy if it happens. So, like I said, good stuff, great story throughout the night, great build, and just awesome payoff. Best backstage of the week. There were quite a few good backstage segments, but my favorite of all for the entire week was on NXT, where the Gargano family throughout the night was doing this counseling session where Austin Theory is trying to... the Garganos are trying to help Austin Theory, get past his kidnapping by by Dexter Lumis. So obviously, Indy Hartwell's got this crazy crush on Dexter now, but throughout this whole thing, Austin Theory is just Gargano's getting irritated, gets kicked out of the room, then everyone else gets kicked out of the room, and Theory is just he's still enamored by Dexter. And then the counselor tells him, or therapist, whatever, tells him that that she spoke to Dexter Lumis and that he thought that Austin Theory was annoying and that basically made fun of his abs and stuff. So he started crying. Probably one of the most hilarious, whining things I've ever seen. Probably one of my absolute favorite backstage segments of all time, because this whole thing was just amazing. It was hilarious, very well done. Gargano obviously turns out that he paid the counselor to say these bad things about Dexter Lumis, or make these claims that Dexter Lumis said bad things about Austin. But the whole Austin Theory going, just crying, him crying really loudly in the back. I was laughing so hard throughout this whole thing. But yeah, Gargano counseling session. Best backstage of the entire week. Best show of the week. So let's go through them. Raw, I gave it a 9.72. It was in the middle with this, and you'll find that out here soon enough. But Raw they really delivered in a lot of ways. I mean, the best match obviously was the main event, but that story told throughout, and there were a lot of other great segments too. But obviously, I cover it in more detail as to all the things that I liked about the show on the podcast, extra. But it's honestly, it was just a really good show. I enjoyed it. Wasn't my favorite show of the week, but it was just a really good show. AEW this past week, the episode of AEW convinced me to watch Revolution, and we'll get more into that here in a second. But I gave AEW a 9.31, and it was granted it's a lower rating than it's been getting. It's kind of been on this decline over time, but there were a number of matches that stood out. Obviously, there was actually one match that I almost put in there. It was a 6-man tag, and I won't get into what was in the 6-man tag so much, but it was the 6-man tag that involved Jurassic Express and FTR with Tully Blanchard. I love that match. It was actually one of my favorite matches of the week. It didn't make it to the top 5, but still, it was a good match. And overall, a lot of the things that happened on Dynamite convinced me to watch Revolution. So, which I was on edge about. NXT. I think I mentioned I gave AEW a 9.31. Yes. Dynamite, that is. NXT, I thought it was a perfect show. From start to finish, everything about the show was awesome. I wish I could have fit more into the top 5. Would have gave an honorable mention, but honestly, I actually forgot to do that. But either way, this show, from beginning to end, including the women's tag title match, there was the match with Timothy Thatcher and Ciampa. I'm enjoying a lot of what NXT is doing right now. And obviously, with this whole thing at the end of the show, you had Roderick Strong taking on Finn Balor. Just awesome stuff. Just straight from all the way through. And I'll get more into why it was such a great show here eventually, here soon. But I really enjoyed watching NXT. That's why I got a 10. Smackdown. Another awesome show. Smackdown got a 9.79. And it was, obviously continuing with this awesome storytelling involving Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan, as well as Jey Uso. You saw all that. You also saw some stuff with Seth Rollins, as he's been trying to make an appeal to Cesaro, and Buddy Murphy comes in, or Murphy. You see him for the first time in months since his storyline wrapped up with Seth Rollins. What was it, back in November, December? But either way, after that storyline wrapped up, you hadn't seen Murphy since then. And you saw him in this match. He had a match with Cesaro, which was okay. But at the end of it, Seth Rollins cheered on Cesaro. There was a lot, like I said, there was a lot of good stuff on SmackDown this week, and I enjoyed it from start to finish. Obviously, with that awesome cage match between Jey Uso and Daniel Bryan. I'm going to get into something else here soon, which is actually going to be a little bit controversial, I think. And then Revolution. So I gave SmackDown a 9.79. I gave Raw a 9.72. AEW Dynamite a 9.31, and NXT a 10. Just like with All Out this past year, I was disappointed in this show, Revolution. The worst thing about this is you have to spend $50 to watch the pay-per-view. Especially when you're like me and you don't know what your work schedule is going to be, so you have to order it and record it. So, watching this show, don't get me wrong, there were great matches in there. You had a great tag team title match between the Young Bucks and MJF, Y2J, or rather Chris Jericho, which I predicted was going to lead to a breakup of Jericho and MJF, as well as Jericho probably being kicked out of the Inner Circle, because that's what their whole court thing or whatever is coming up is going under the War Council. That's what that's going to be. I'm very sure on Wednesday. Christian Cage debuted on Revolution. We'll get more into that here in a second. Rather, he appeared and signed a contract. But and also the Exploding Death match. You had the street fight, and even the Battle Royal was good. But there were also matches I didn't care for. I hated the ladder match. Like I said in my podcast, which you'll hear this coming up week when I post it, when I review all the shows that I watch. The worst thing about this pay-per-view, or at least with this ladder matches, there were spots in there that just didn't make sense. Like, there were times where someone was like obviously waiting for a spot to happen, and it was just obvious. Like, it wasn't a natural flow. If we had seen this back in the Attitude Era, we would have been like, what the hell? It looks stupid. I mean, it would have made it obvious how fake it was. Let's put it that way. And I hate using the word fake with wrestling because I know how offensive that is. But I'm just saying, it would have made it obviously fake in the eyes of a casual observer. It just looked stupid. Like, there was one part, and I bitched about this in my recording for the podcast, where Lance Archer, he's he's almost like he's doing a push-up or something. He's in between two parts of the ladder, and he's just laying there, and he's laying down, which was fine, and then he propped himself up, and he stayed in that position for what felt like an hour. Obviously, it was just more like 30, 40 seconds, but he just stayed like that instead of trying to get up. He said that he should have tried to get up, and one of the other guys should have tried to kick him. But instead he just stayed there and watched them and waited for them to land on top of him. It was stupid. I'm sorry. It was dumb. It was kind of a slow pace for me for a ladder match involving all these guys. I don't know. It really felt off. There was also a part where I think I want to say it was Penta. He held up the ladder at one point, and he was in a fight with someone else over the ladder, and he held it up waiting for something to happen. I hate that stuff. It's annoying because just like the whole thing where there was this, I think, a very justified complaint about everyone just waiting for someone to jump on them. It's the same thing with what I saw in this ladder match. It was very sloppy, in my view, and I gave it a very low rating, which helped to drag down the rating for the pay-per-view. And then, obviously, I'm also not too big of a fan of how AEW does their opening video packages for their pay-per-views. There's no fireworks at the beginning. They have piss-poor production on their opening video packages. Yes, I mentioned before, I'm basically spoiled with how WWE excellently does it, and I know I look like a WWE mark. Call me that if you want. I don't care. But the fact of the matter is that their video packages suck in AEW. It doesn't really get me hyped up for the pay-per-view as much as some others who may worship AEW. It gets them hyped up, but not me. I thought it's just very bland. So that got probably the lowest rating of the night. And then the ending segment of the pay-per-view. We have to talk about that. It was god-awful. Granted, first part of it, I mean, obviously you had the main event match, which was great, and then you had the beatdown of Jon Moxley, which was also great, and then you had the emotional moment where Eddie Kingston comes down to try to save Jon Moxley from the explosion to come, but then it went out with a fizzle. It's just, I felt what the cons, although the pros technically outweighed the cons were so bad that it made me regret buying the pay-per-view. It felt like a bad episode of Dynamite. Because as you listen, I gave this show an 8.54. It got a lower rating than Dynamite did from me. So, I will be surprised if AEW is able to give me a reason to buy Double or Nothing. At this rate, I will be surprised. Just because it feels like you're watching an episode of Dynamite that sometimes is actually worse. When it should be a lot better. So, yeah, that was terrible. I'm sorry. So, best heel of the week was Cameron Grimes. The guy, I almost made Johnny Gargano the best heel of the week. There were a number of candidates, obviously. But Cameron Grimes is he's fun to watch. Especially now as him being the comedy heel with all this money trying to be a knockoff Ted DiBiase. I love it. He tried to offer to pay off Regal from making him fight in a match against Bronson Reed, and then Regal said no, and he's like, that stupid Ted DiBiase. Or he either said stupid Ted DiBiase, or he said that damn Ted DiBiase. Either way, he blamed Ted DiBiase for his failure to get out of a match. It was great. So definitely love Cameron Grimes, and can't wait to see what they do with him next. Even if they just keep him doing these little bits like this, I'll still be overly entertained by him and enjoy every second. Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley was the fire story of the week. So there's the big surprise. There were all these elements for AEW to really deliver this week between Revolution and Dynamite right before it. And honestly, in a lot of ways, they did deliver here and there. It was the weak points that really dragged them down. But those strong points, they stood out in a lot of ways. Obviously, I almost made all 5 of the top 5 matches, between from AEW, because there was a lot of really good matches. But when it came to the fire story of the week, there was no doubt about it that going into this, the big story of the week, it felt like was between Omega and Moxley, as it should be. So, yeah, kudos to them for hooking us into the show. And, they did their work. They did their job. It's not their fault that others didn't do theirs. So, moving on, we have the new or top star of the week, Christian returned to wrestling. Going to obviously make an in-ring return on a regular basis. Returned as Christian Cage, revisiting his persona from TNA. And honestly, I'm looking forward to it. It's one of the reasons why I may just hang around just a little bit longer to watch AEW, just to see what they do with Christian. But but they have between now and Double or Nothing. Honestly, it's sad that it's come to this point to where it's from pay-per-view to pay-per-view. How well are they doing? If they can't get me hooked to where I'm going to keep buying their pay-per-views, then guess what? I'm just going to stop watching because it's a waste of my time at that point. But with Christian, they have a chance. So hopefully they don't blow it. Best promo of the week, Apollo Cruz, I think was tied with LA Knight. So let me talk first about LA Knight. LA Knight, I'm really eager to see what they do with him. He played a part in interfering in a match during the night. But LA Knight himself is kind of standing out because I like his promo work. I've seen him in the ring, but I really dig him, character-wise. When he's just Eli Drake in Impact and as well as NWA, I was very much a fan of his. Always bragged about how he had been to WWE because he was briefly in WWE before, and then of course, bragging about that going to the little leagues as he was likely portraying it. But I don't know. I enjoy watching him. So we'll see what he does from here. The reason why Apollo Crews is also in this, kind of tied with LA Knight, is because I felt like his promo, although controversial because he's changed his accent, kind of changed his looks. As long as he's okay with it, it's not borderline racism, but it seems like it is. But he's owning it. He's doing his best to own it, and I liked his promo. He's a believable heel for me, at least. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing with him. All because of this promo, but I think it was good. So, I'm going to get into the last 3 things here. And favorite commentary moment, or favorite commentator of the week, favorite commentary moment. That's basically what we're turning to here. I almost said Adam Cole. Michael Cole on SmackDown, seeing Sami Zayn with his camera crew. And he made this comment where he said, I can't wait to see this documentary. It's going to be about 3 days long. He said that, murdered me, because I was laughing really hard at that stupid comment because it just came out of nowhere. And I thought to myself, yeah, there's a lot of footage on there, so supposed footage. And if they really do release this as a documentary, I'm going to watch it because I'm going to love every second of it. I know it because I love Sami Zayn. Yeah, that was a great moment from Adam Cole, not Adam Cole, but Michael Cole. I said it, damn it. All right, so this week in wrestling history, let me see, 1999. So 22 years ago today, March 8th, 1999. Kevin Nash had become the booker of WCW, or one of the bookers rather, and he booked Nitro. On the episode from March 8th, 1999, he booked the first hour of Nitro not to feature any matches, and apparently his excuse was that the matches in the first hour was not necessary, and he felt like it wasn't necessary because regardless of whether those matches or not, they're gonna do the same rating. They're going to bring in the same number of viewers anyways. And the worst part is, he was correct. He was right. So they got 4.4 million average viewers for that episode of Nitro, which they stay consistent. But like the article that I read said, unfortunately for them, Raw dominated regardless because they got 2 million more people to watch their show than WCW did. So, yeah. Either way, that was an interesting little footnote for history. So with that, I thank you for watching. Please make sure to check out my podcast, Extra Extra, as well as my website, DanaCrawford.org, to see all my other projects and everything else that I'm involved in. So thank you for watching again, and we will catch you next week.